Ask George is brought to you by International Cricket Tours. International Cricket Tours are experts at cricket, but experts of international travel with decades of experience behind them. If you love cricket, if you love touring, use International Cricket Tours.
Hello and welcome to Ask George, Lord's second test, day 2 edition. I'm Nick Friend. Mark Machado, Spanish, English, however you go with it. George,
Jorge
Dobell. Welcome.
I love the way you're doing this. Instead of doing that, he's doing this.
I don't do it.
You don't have to.
I really see myself as one of those, game show girls kind of thing, from the WBE to the Paul Daniels right here.
Is this bit live?
None of it's live. But
not live.
It's a whole other thing doing the face thing like this. I don't know. It's just I like it.
Macarena stuff.
Nice.
Anyway, Philip Sterling asks, to build off the discussion yesterday, if 50% of the test summer is in London, why should we be surprised that attendances may vary? Two tests in London every summer, and let's move the game around the country to appeal to more demographics.
Yeah, well, broadly, I would agree with that. You would have to say, though, that the tests in London do attract more people than the tests elsewhere. They're bigger grounds for a start, and I think the attendances so far have been good here, and they were a wee bit disappointed in Manchester, but I think you can't just look at the short term. I think you raise a completely reasonable point. And prices are a factor too. Someone accosted, you weren't really accosted, were you?
No, someone just kind of came up to me and just said, no, because yesterday, if you weren't watching yesterday, I said, I think the prices are too high. Somebody came up to me and said they're not too high because I could afford to be here, kind of implying that he didn't think he earned a lot of money, but he could get here. And I said, that's kind of moot, isn't it? Because you're here already. Think about the people who aren't here, who can't come up and accost me going, the prices are too high. But I think if you've got any sort of event, you have to start thinking about it from what's it going to look like on TV. You look at that Old Trafford test and you see empty stands, it doesn't look good. People come because they want to be part of something exciting. You need to get it be exciting. One thing Sri Lanka fans have told me when I've been here is we can't bring our flags in. There's a big tradition of bringing drums and what they call the papa in Sri Lankan cricket. They're not allowed to bring that in here. They weren't allowed to get it in Old Trafford, and it would have been a different atmosphere. It would have been brought carnival vibes. I'm not saying Sri Lanka would have played better, but it would have got more fans in, and it would be more attractive on television. And I don't think cricket's doing enough to make itself look good. I'm straight off into different.
No, I think it's all really relevant. I mean, it's a very specific ground. So the members here would decide about the flags and instruments.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm surprised about Old Trafford. I didn't know that.
Well, you might be able to at Old Trafford.
Yeah, well, they told me that actually. I'm not sure if anyone actually asked. If they just decided that they weren't allowed to bring it in.
Because certainly there's the Barmy Army trumpeters at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Not here though.
But they're like designated musicians, aren't they? I don't know if people start turning up with trumpets and drums and that happens in Sri Lanka and other parts of the world as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you can bring in alcohol here.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the only ground in the world you can.
If you're a Sri Lanka fan, you probably need that.
To that point, let's go with Gus Atkinson. There are obviously a few on him. Lord and Zoni asks, is Gus Atkins batting a big bonus for England, but a big problem for Chris Woakes' Ashes ambitions?
Oh, it's just a bonus. It can never be a bad thing to have more people who can.
It's a surprise, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone
he batted really well. I didn't know he could bat that well. Christ. He batted, it was a really, really good innings. The thing is, you'll remember 14 years ago, Stuart Broad hit a fantastic century here, and it did turn out to be aberrational. So we don't know. Well, it did, didn't it?
Very completely.
So we don't know yet, but it wasn't lucky, it wasn't chancy, it was a really classy innings. Does it put pressure on Chris Woakes? I don't know that they do the same thing, really. Chris Woakes is coming towards the end of his career, and Gus Atkinson's at the start of his. It's kind of making a negative out of a positive, that, I think, as a question. From an English cricket point of view, it's purely good.
I think it's more than a bonus as well. It's fundamentally important. England have spent so much time planning this new refreshed bowling attack, but if you've got Sher Bashir as your spinner of choice, Mark Wood as your quick of choice, your senior quick of choice, you do risk having a tail that starts at 8 if you get it wrong, don't you? If you're so obsessed with pace, and if you look
it does matter.
The other names who've been around squads, Pennington and even Josh Hull here. Actually, the 8, 9, 10 they had here in Matt Potts, I think he's got Champo 140 this season. Ollie Stone's got 3 Champo 50s this season. You've got Gus Atkinson with a Test 100. That is really important because the way the top 7 play as well. you are going to expose a low roll attack.
I thought it was a key difference between the sides, actually, just because Sri Lanka had 3 bowlers. They started great yesterday, but they flagged in the evening session. They really did. They flagged in the evening. They were poor this morning, weren't they? And, having that extra bowler and being able to have an extra bowler because the batting's strong enough to withstand it might be the point of difference between the sides in this game.
Yeah, I mean, we did the Murali End together, and we talked about how Sri Lanka desperately need a seaming all-rounder, and I mean, we saw the way they bat today. They desperately need any batter, to be honest. I think Sri Lanka are all out at sea in the loss. This whole day and the back end of yesterday as well. Sri Lanka could definitely do with another bowler. I think the whole problem around kind of trying to plan fast bowlers and who's going to bowl when in this format of cricket is just looking at the Ashes. It's 18 months away. It's not even that. It's 15 months away now.
Yeah,
it's just so far ahead. You got a whole extra summer to go through. With Sri Lanka, the strategy with bowling seems to be, right, we're going on this tour, or we've got this series coming up, who's fit, who's available. That said, this team that's out there today, they had kind of worked for a few months with these guys to try and get them into shape. It's not kind of worked out for them, because I don't think they've got enough to bowl as much as they needed to. And this goes back to Gus Atkinson's century as well. They just run out of ideas for large parts of bowling.
Bitterly disappointing, Dave, Sri Lanka. They had to bat really deep. We were talking about this morning. I thought they had to be batting late tomorrow in their first innings.
Yeah.
They screwed it. I mean, it's gone. This was the key day of the series. They'll need a miracle now.
They were very good until England were about 220 for 6, right?
Right. So when the bowlers got tired,
and England have been on the wrong end of this before. I think this was the first. This isn't a mad stat. It doesn't happen that often, but I think it was the first 100 by England batted from 8 or below in 11 years since Matt Pryor.
Wow. And who did it as a night watcher?
Night watchman, I'm trying to say. England have been on the wrong end of it a lot, haven't they? Sort of low tails, struggling to blow them over, and that is, I guess what England done.
They're on the other end of it today,
yeah. Anyway, to remain on Atkinson, Indoor Kite Society says, I think we could probably answer this. Has anyone ever gotten both honours boards as quickly as Gus Atkinson?
No.
Of course, it's not both. It's 3. He's done the 100, the 5 in the 10-wicket match.
Yeah. So
to put
it in perspective, I think that Ian Botham got on there in his second test here as well, which is incredible, isn't it?
But Gus wins by an innings.
But he's done it quicker in terms of doing it quicker in the second game. So presumably he's going to end up a trade envoy of Australia on current trajectory.
Are you saying the Australians might quite fancy facing him?
Why? No.
Because you're trying to pack him off as a trade envoy already.
No, not yet. I just meant that because that's what happened to Lord Botham.
Oh yeah. I know what you meant.
Okay.
I was trying to twist it into a more.
You journos. Yeah. For all the best news and analysis, subscribe to the award-winning Cricketer for just £3.99 a month.
You've touched this already. Rick Walton asked, do you, like me, more than slightly resent the let's focus on the Ashes thing?
Hello, Rick. Big fan of Rick. I did, but they are about to win their 7th home test in a row, their 2nd series in a row. And
with a very clear eye on the Ashes.
So you can kind of do both at the same time. So I absolutely take the point. Where it gets in the way, yes, that would be a problem. I absolutely think it would probably be annoying to a Sri Lanka supporter.
Deeply annoying.
Patronising, annoying, all the rest of it. But if England win again and win as big as it looks like they might, it's just annoying, but it's reasonable, I'm afraid.
I think, though, you have to look at this in a wider context of, we're talking about stadiums being full, we're talking about ticket prices. If every time we hear about the England Test team, they're talking about the Ashes, it kind of belittles everything else around it, and eventually it's not eventually, we're at the stage now where it's just eroded kind of what all other Test series mean.
And in the era of World Test Championships, that shouldn't be the case. But they are winning, doing what they're doing. The other thing, look, there'll be India supporters.
At what cost, George? That's the thing.
Is he coming out of the picture here? Don't leave me. I was
trying to be metaphorically the rest of cricket.
Okay, nice. India supporters will be particularly annoyed, I think, because it's such a good side. and they are going to be spoiling to win in England next English summer, and England cannot overlook that series. Yeah, that one in particular. Let's be honest, and you're not going to hate this. England can rest, rotate, and experiment, and beat West Indies and Sri Lanka. It looks that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it should be or not, they can't do that against India.
Yeah, and I think they're setting themselves up here because what they should have done is made everything about that series for next year, and A, built that up as something that's quite important, and B, if you come out of that with momentum, then you go into Australia, where now that's potential absolute roadblock in their way. If they start tripping up, if they start having, Sri Lanka have kind of halted them playing baseball or the style of cricket that we're trying to play. If India come
is that
and
a
do
moral
that and
victory?
start to, I think the fact that we're even here is a moral victory, George.
Well, the end of day two, you've got to set the bar higher than that.
But you know, if India come here and baseball ends up not being baseball, and then they'll have another 2 or 3 month period in between where people just go, what you're going to play, what you expect them to play. You couldn't play baseball against India in England. Do you think you'd be able to go to the Gabba and do what you're doing?
I couldn't give
here?
a toss how they win.
Yeah,
as long as they win, personally.
I know you don't, but it's the narrative they've created around the team,
they have
which
created
is part of this.
I mean, they didn't invent the term.
Yeah.
And the term is really unhelpful. But they've absolutely fed into it. They've said some vainglorious things which are going to bite them on the arse. Absolutely right. But actually, kind of music to my ears, the way that they've played in the last few days, in that they got their head down. You know, Joe Root's played proper old school cricket, hasn't he? Just played really, really well. Well, lovely to see lots of fours and sixes. Brilliant. Who doesn't want that? But if they're going to play against Australia, I would prefer they won rather than play. I would. Other people might disagree. Rather than they entertained the hell out of us and lost. I want them to win. I don't care if they win ugly, mean.
But what about the moral ashes and the moral victories?
God, I've done so many tours of Australia where England have been thrashed. Yeah? I've done all those last 15 tests. Every one of them I've sat through, and they've lost 13 of them. And one of the ones they didn't lose was that Melbourne one, where Alistair Cook might still be batting. I did think that Sidney Wetherby might be out there this morning, by the way. Anyway, because he ruined my childhood. Have I gone too much?
Change the subject. Bobby Smith says, was that review the worst in Test history?
Oh, it was a shocker. But to be fair to Ollie Pope, it's not him, it's Jamie Smith, actually. If your keeper and slips...
I don't think Jamie Smith thought it was out either.
Well, the bowler didn't think it was out.
What does it tell you about Ollie Pope's captaincy,
I think it was vice-captain and former captain, wasn't it? It was Brook and Root. To be fair,
So,
Bobby
but if your
Smith
slips-
calls it the Root-led review.
If your slips think it's out, you have to rely on them. And
Did miss it by a very long way then.
oh, it's a shocker. It was a shocker, yeah.
What does it tell you about Pope's captaincy? Because if he didn't think it was out, and the wicketkeeper didn't think it's out, and he still ends up...
I think he's done quite well as captain.
It was bowler and keeper. I mean, Pope was at Gully, I think, so he was part of the cordon that clearly...
Yeah, but you're Gully, you're not... Yeah, but there was a sound.
There have always been worse reviews. The worst... People always call it, is this the worst... People always say, is this the worst review? There's always been a worse review. It's what I always remember the Jason Holder LBW appeal in 2020, was it?
God knows.
COVID.
Can you remember a version
I'll
of
find
worst
your
review
photo.
that early on in an innings, though? Because normally bad reviews come when you're
late,
desperate for a
come late.
wicket and you're trying to make something.
No, it
I've
was
seen-
a real bad one. But I just don't want to
it-
be too hard on Pope.
I think it's the big recency. I think it's one of the big recency bias things. People forget them very quickly, but there are so many
That's
shocking
true.
reviews. That wasn't top 20. It was bad.
It was pretty bad.
And you know it's bad when they don't bother going through the whole process.
Does it not show that he's trusting his senior players? I mean, Joe Root is clearly seeing the ball like it's a watermelon, and he was adamant. I think if he'd been that sure, everyone heard the sound.
You do also see plenty of reviews where one bloke thinks it's out at point.
Yeah.
No one else thinks it's out, and they go for it, and there is a little tickle, and everyone goes, "What a great review!"
Yeah, that's true.
It does happen.
The Dan Lawrence
there was obviously a
one,
noise.
I don't think it was out, and I don't think anyone
Not
else
sure he
around it
thought
thought it was
out.
out. He
No,
didn't
I'm
think
really
it was out, and
surprised
then
by
it was
that.
out.
But was it?
I tell you, it would have been one
It's
of the
been given out.
It's been given.
So
a rare case where good old hotspot would have come in handy.
Yeah.
Because actually it was one of those ones we did need to see the inside edge.
I was surprised he was given out. I
Anyway,
think he's
a
unlucky.
small part of the day. Final question, and sort of, I guess,
But could
in line with
define
Lawrence.
Dan Lawrence's whole career.
I meant
yeah.
I meant the first review.
Yeah.
Peter Swaby asks, what is its modern obsession with not enforcing the follow-on?
Hello, Peter. Thank you for re-asking the question. There's lots of things going on there. I mean, bear in mind the last time England enforced, they lost Wellington not so long ago. But also the days when they used to enforce, there were rest days. Can you imagine? How glorious would that be?
They're coming back. They're coming back. There's a rest day during Sri Lanka's.
But because there's an election.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Go and
specific.
vote.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons. The game's changed quite a lot, hasn't it?
There's also a lot of time left in the game. It doesn't, there's no...
I think they might have done it if they knocked over the last 3 wickets of the Sri Lankan innings a bit quicker. I think they might have done it.
Is it trying to manage your bowlers as well? I mean, we
Definitely.
started off by asking about...
particularly-
Also, the pitch is
particularly the
glorious still, isn't it, really?
Particularly the character bowlers. Character bowlers, is that what I mean? The profile of bowlers they've got on the side. History tells us that you want to look after Gus Atkinson and Ollie Stone, probably in particular, and Chris Woakes was coming into this with a bit of a niggle as well, wasn't he? So there's no time pressure, and
Well, I was a bit surprised. Well, I wasn't actually. Not by the time it happened, but because the pitch is still really good. Why give Sri Lanka another opportunity to bat on it? But bearing in mind England's love of golf, I did think it was a possibility. They might think, come on, fellas, let's.
They might get another 200 before lunch tomorrow. They might just go, right, Sri Lanka go and have a bat.
Hey, and well, another thing. Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted, but Ollie Pope as well was quite brave. If he was a selfish captain, he might have thought, "Oh, I don't fancy batting in the glue," because it did get a wee bit dark. It's dark now, as you can tell.
Or maybe he thought.
could well have seen Gus Atkinson striding out to bat under other captains. Let's say at that point.
Yeah, I think that would have been a bad look, but
That's why, because he would have known, I've got no other option here. I've got to. I think he's a captain under real pressure.
I agree with you. He is, but
it's a tough job for anyone, isn't it?
look. He's just got to score some bloody runs. Everything else is irrelevant, really.
Yeah.
But I do think he's done a couple of things there that I wouldn't particularly blame him for. So, one, enforcing the follow-on. He didn't put his own interests above those of the team. And two, I'm not blaming him for the review. Awful that it was.
Also, did some really good things that first innings. I mean.
Well, the field
when
placings.
When was the last time we saw 2 catches at leg slip and off a seam bowler on day 2 of any test? He's done
The run out was great, wasn't it?
Took his time, didn't panic. No, I just think he's very likely to go 2 tests up in a 2-test captaincy career. Be really handy for himself. He could score some big runs, but I think he's doing a pretty good job for it, really.
Yeah.
Lost
Professional captains.
both tosses as well, isn't he? So
Has he become Mike Brearley?
he'll be all right.
Has he scored more runs in
doing
the
a tough
series?
job. He's doing a tough job.
Than Dan and Jai. Desperate Dan and
No,
Jai.
because Dan and Jai got
Jai
the
got
76, didn't they? Or 17 something.
Anyway, I'm very cold.
We'll see you tomorrow.